Hi, I'm Darciea.
And I'm Jess.
So today we're going to be talking about being a woman doing mechanical engineering and displays of sexism seen while on the course. So with me today is Julie Varley, the Director of Student Experience, and Maria, the first female lecturer in the department. Would you two like to talk about your experience of being a woman in the field and if it's had a big impact or maybe it hasn't had a big impact?
I think it's very, very difficult to say what my experiences were, whether they were influenced by my sex or not. Because the only way to say this is if I could live two lives, one as a woman and one as a man, and then compare them. So I've had the experiences that I've had, and it is very difficult to say if any of the negative experiences I had, which everyone has in their lives, whether it's because I was a woman or not. But I think that's irrelevant in any case, because if you see that the fact that you're a minority still in the department, and then very few women progress to the top tier of the academic ladder, that is in itself evidence that there are obstacles for women.
Yes, so I would agree entirely with Maria that it's very difficult to say what influences your career path or your experience, whether it's your gender or whether it's other factors. I know that I've got certain personality traits. For example, I think I'm quite empathetic, and there tend to be characteristics that maybe we stereotypically think of as being more female characteristics. And I would agree with Maria in a way that you can look at, say, within college. If I go to different sorts of meetings, if I go to a meeting that's about pastoral care, then there will be a greater percentage of women at those kind of meetings than there are if you go to a meeting that's maybe about academic progression. So again, you can look at the sort of evidence and say that pastoral care, maybe EDI, are sort of spheres of influence, if you like, in college, or spheres of work where there tend to be more women who are associated with those.
I think it's hard to say exactly what causes the difference in how many people from each gender are in the subject, but as Maria said, it's very obvious that a very small proportion of people in STEM, and specifically engineering, are women. And obviously we know that female education came as an afterthought to male education, and there are records of women being excluded at places in Imperial less than 100 years ago. So I think even though it's not the same now, I feel like the sexism is maybe it's more subtle, less obvious. There's no specific rule saying women can't do something. It's like an invisible barrier that female students face that their male colleagues necessarily might not, such as being doubted and questioned of your capabilities, and even doubting your own capabilities as a result of that.
Since it's definitely been thought that for quite a long time that women didn't even deserve the chance to be educated, do you think anyone still holds that view or some kind of view similar to that in your experience?
I wouldn't say that's true anymore. And I have to say that I've been, I was a student like you in the 80s. I got a lectureship in 97, so I've been around for a very, very long time. And I can see that there's very positive changes throughout the way. So I've had it easier than the few women that were there in the department before me. And I can see that the women that came after me, they've had it easier than me. So I think the progression is definitely the right way. And I can never say that any of my colleagues had this sort of extreme opinions against women, that they shouldn't be educated and so on and so forth. But I think in a way that would have been easier to pinpoint, and that would have solved the problem. It's these subtle things that are going on at the same time. And also what Julie was saying, the effect of all this on you, because it makes you less confident. And therefore, when you are in, meetings, student meetings and so on, you perhaps do not say your views, you do not offer to say something. And therefore, this is why other people do not ask you, and therefore you feel that you're being ignored. So it's all a vicious circle, and they're all very subtle, all these changes.
I think there's a general feeling that women should be treated equally, and as you and Maria both said, it's the subtler things that maybe happen quite regularly, but they're not so dramatic as what might have happened in the past.
I agree, because for the most part we live in a much better society than we did decades ago. So I think it means that it's harder to point out when someone's doing something wrong, because they don't believe that sexism is much of a problem anymore. So it means that things can like, they'll be like, oh, you're like overreacting, like it's not, because the things are really, really small. And it's like, also you don't know whether it's because you're a woman or if there's another reason behind it. So it's harder to like pick it out.
So in the department at the moment, with like the design groups and things like that, like some girls have reached out and said like how they've been feeling. So I'm gonna read out a few of them. During the car project, I got spoken over a lot. I would underlie my arguments with calculations and research and still be ignored. Then one of the guys would say the same thing, but arguing his gut feeling told him so. So someone else says, it's nothing super specific, just constantly being made to feel lesser than. I don't claim to be insanely clever, but I know that I am above average, and I'm constantly treated like I know nothing in a way that I never see directed towards a guy. Whenever I try to speak to people about it, they always act like I'm being too sensitive or making stuff up, and that it's the same for everyone.
Yeah, I think I have two things to say about them. One of them is the concept of gaslighting. So like, you feel like something's happened to you, and then someone will try and tell you that that's not what actually happened, and then it makes you feel like you've got the whole situation wrong, and that no one's being sexist, and sometimes they could be, and then you never really know. And the other thing was, it kind of sounds like it can feed into imposter syndrome. I feel like imposter syndrome is something that's really common at Imperial, because you suddenly go from like being the smartest kid in your class of 30 people to then suddenly being at university with like hundreds of other people that are all just as smart as you, and you feel like you don't belong there, and you feel like you're stupid. And I feel like being a woman can be another reason why you get imposter syndrome, and you're just constantly doubting yourself and feeling like you don't belong there. And like, that's most of these things I haven't experienced, but imposter syndrome is the one thing which I can relate to, just feeling like you're not into engineering enough and things like that, because you're not into the stereotypical things like Formula One. I mean, girls can be into Formula One, I know plenty of girls in the course that are, but like I'm not, and I'm like more in just, I'm just not into that kind of thing, and it feels like I don't want to.
I think with the design, it's interesting that you picked the design projects, because a lot of them are like hands-on making things, and it could be that on average, the boy students that we have in our course have had more, like you said, interest in cars and taking things apart and engines, and so therefore this is why they, they feel like maybe their ideas are better. Whereas the average, I'm not saying it's stereotypical, but the average girl wouldn't have opened up engines and make things and so on before they come here. And I think this is why the problem appears more in design maybe than in other courses. And also in a course of 160 people, is what Julie was saying, you're going to get some people who are very, very outspoken. They want to show that they're very good, and they're going to stop at nothing to show that they're the stars. So they will not listen to other ideas. And I think here it's not just, gender. It could be a male that is shy and doesn't say their opinions. They would suffer from that as well. So I think in situations like this, once you realize that this is happening, at the end of the day, we do not want to get the same ideas all the time in design groups, only from the people that know how to put engines apart and so on. We want everybody to contribute. Otherwise, we're going to be designing the same old. So once you realize that, this is going to happen, and you're prepared for it, then you go to a meeting, and then once they start saying, say, okay, what about my idea? And then say, if they don't respond to you, then what you could say, sorry, I've just said this idea. And then if somebody, like you said on the example that you read, and then the boy said the same thing, and he was acknowledged. Well, say, sorry, that was exactly what I said. And you could joke about it. You don't have to point fingers, because I think if we start pointing fingers at people, put them in the corner, they're not going to help. So to solve this problem, we want everybody as allies. We want people to realize what the effect of their action is on you, the shy males, the non-alpha males, and so on.
In conjunction with what you were saying, pointing fingers definitely doesn't help. It will make people get defensive and everything. And it is quite difficult, I would say, like from my own experience as well, I think, to carry on having to say like, please, can you listen? Or look, I already said, can you listen to this? Or to keep on defending yourself, which is obviously what you should do. But it can also be very discouraging if that's something you're going to have to do often and quite a lot.
I think like an important point that was made was about personality types, and like some people are much more passive, and then some people are much more like, I want to use the word aggressive. You know what I mean? Like you put yourself forward more, that's me, to be honest. But I feel like it's not necessarily that you naturally have that personality type. I feel like sometimes you can get influenced to have that. So like growing up, I feel like
if a girl is quite assertive and like she likes to take a leadership role, she gets called bossy. Like that's something that I got like told all the time, that I was bossy. When I'm really like, I haven't had that since I've gotten older. I feel like people don't necessarily say it as much anymore. But I've never had a guy being called bossy, like if he takes a leadership role. Whereas like, so I feel like because those kind of words are used, it makes you feel like you need to be quiet and like not take that role and like not tell other people to do. You know what I mean? Be a leader. So yeah, I feel like that kind of influences it, and it means that some girls feel like they can't speak up, and then that's why they get spoken over. Yeah, and other girls overcompensate for that, and then become really like assertive and get called bossy.
How do you think that we can support you in raising these concerns in a way that ensures that people listen?
I feel like this podcast to start with is a really good, like it's a really good way of just talking about it, and we're not like blaming people. We're not saying, oh, you're a terrible person because you do this. We're just saying that like it's very likely even women are sexist a lot of the time. I think we said in the unconscious bias training that women can be like biased against women because of the society we've grown up in, and like that's kind of the point. Is we're not saying like you're an awful person. It was the same as like with the Black Lives Matter movement. Everyone needs to like check themselves, and we're not. Yeah, everyone just needs to like think about their behaviors and take a time to reflect rather than being like, oh, but I'm not sexist. Just think about it. Like even I probably had sexist thoughts and like thought someone's not as smart as they are just because they're a woman, even though I'm a woman, and I would hate that to happen to me. It's just something that can naturally happen in your brain when you're brought up in a certain society.
So do you need more male allies, if you like? Is that?
I think like I've been quite lucky. My design group's been very good, but I definitely know other friends as well who have found it much more comforting to have that one person who you know like does agree with you and does like have your back and will support you. And I think the concept of male allies is incredibly important, I think, because I think they do actually have like a lot of power. So yeah, it is quite important to have men to have your back as well.
I think on a happier note, by the time this podcast comes out, I think everyone will know, but we're starting a new society for women in MechEng, and anyone's welcome to join. You can obviously you can be a woman, but if you're a man who's wanting to support women in MechEng and help strive for gender equality, then you're also welcome to join. We're going to be hosting events, social events, and we're going to try and get some industry talks from women in the industry, and also we're going to do some charity fundraisers for women's charities. So yeah, that'll be hopefully once COVID is over, we'll be able to get more into that and do some in-person stuff. But yeah, that's something quite exciting that we've started up.
Maybe just a last word. I think the way that we're brought up in many occasions, especially the older generations, is different, women to men. And maybe, we're meant to feel that it's not our place to be an engineer and more to do with raise children and so on and so forth. And that unfortunately sticks to your mind. And if you're in a situation where there's a lot of men discussing some research or design project and so on, you might feel they're ignoring this because my ideas are not really that good. And it kind of, you put it on yourself almost, not this self-belief. So if it's, we should realize this and give us, we should all give ourselves a break that, it is harder for us. Okay. So it has been because of our upbringing and so on. And just go over that, and just always having like a goal to always say something, contribute your opinion. And it's not wrong, whichever opinion you have, the whole group will benefit and everybody should chip in. And if anybody ignores you, then it really is their problem, not you. So that should help with the imposter syndrome. So everybody should be allowed to give an opinion. If somebody's ignoring you, they're in the wrong.